Mm.
Do you ever wonder why there are certain people who really get ahead and there are others who just never get out of the starting blocks? My name is Dr. Ruth Gotian, and welcome to the Mentor Project's Optimizing Your Success show. We're going to figure out why certain people achieve great success and other people really struggle. But what can we learn from these great high achievers in order to optimize our own success? Today, we have a great show and great panelists, and we're really going to talk about how it is that you can get ahead. And they're going to share some incredible stories. And we have been chatting before the show started. We have been laughing so hard, we almost forgot to press record. You are going to love today's guests because it's really an eclectic group. It really has so many different areas of specialty. And if we're lucky enough, and we might even save some lives today. We've got big goals for today's show. So without waiting, whoa, another minute. Here are our guests. Allison, take it away.
Hi, I'm Dr. Allison Escalante. I'm an adjunct professor of pediatrics at Rush in Chicagoland. And I'm on a mission to make a dent in the anxiety epidemic that's affecting us as professionals, as parents, as kids, because of a culture of criticism and anxiety that I call the should storm. You should do this, you should do that, and you're going to be screwed if you don't.
And I highly recommend, one of my jobs here is, with the high achievers don't always talk about all of their successes. So I feel that I am the color of the peacock. I am here to really show some of the colors of their feathers if they don't do it themselves. If you haven't checked out Dr. Allison Escalante's TED Talk yet, I highly recommend that you check it out. And also you can find it on her website, Should Storm, which is fabulous, chock full of information. Thanks, Allison. Devon.
Hey.
Hello.
Or
First
should
name
I?
Bob.
Since I'm the Jamaican here, I should say Wampum.
Oh.
Oh man, you guys are all lost. So if you go to Jamaica and somebody say "want me," it just means what's up, what's happening.
Oh. So how do we respond?
Well, in Jamaica, there's never a problem. So the answer would be nothing. So want me is what's happening, the shortened version of that, because we're too lazy to say what's happening. And usually there's nothing. There's nothing. But Alison,
you are not a lazy person, Devon, though, because I know what you've accomplished.
We are laid back. What can I say? We are easygoing that way. So I really love that should storm, because I think so many people live their lives, wish I coulda, shoulda kind of thing. And those are not the kind of people we're talking about. We're talking about people who just don't decide not to sit around and accept life as they find it, right? The circumstances they find themselves in, but kind of look beyond that and decide that, I am going to do X, Y, Z. When I was younger, I was...
Wait a minute, Devon, before you get to when you were younger, tell everyone who you are and why I invited you on this show.
Oh, yeah. So when I was younger, I never dreamt that I'd one day become a Jamaican Olympic bobsledder. But perhaps because I didn't get caught in the should storm, things happen.
So Devon is one of the original Jamaican bobsledders.
Right. I'm a three-time Jamaican bobsled Olympian and original member of the Jamaican bobsled team, and motivational speaker, author, philanthropist, and
and one funny guy.
Family of this. We're a bunch right here, so it's all good.
Part of the Optimizing Success family. Welcome, Devon.
I know I'm moving up right now, yes. So it's all good. So when I was younger, though, I used to think, because that's how I thought, that when someone decided that they were going to do something, they just did it, and I soon found out that that's not the case. And so I want to hopefully, as we go through the evening, everyone who is listening will realize that everyone here on the panel are those people who decided they wanted to go do something and they didn't get caught up in the should storm.
Absolutely. Thanks, Devon. Dr. Bruce Y. Lee.
Yes, well, thanks for having me on the show. Speaking of should storm, I should have put something on this green screen because I realize it's just a green screen, which is what people don't usually do. But I have never been on a bobsled myself, so I am in awe of someone who actually can do that and make the Olympics. I myself, I'm a professor of health policy and management at City University of New York, School of Public Health. I do a lot of healthcare AI and modeling and simulation. And when I say modeling, it's not the catwalk type, it's the building computer models. And I also am a senior contributor to Forbes, where I cover health and healthcare and anything involving health.
And great articles. I highly recommend that you check out his articles in Forbes. Thanks, Bruce. Dr. Dave Greenwald.
Good evening. Thanks.
Hello.
So good to be here. So by trade, I'm a gastroenterologist, and I am by title the director of clinical gastroenterology and endoscopy at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York. I'm fortunate also to be president of a large national organization of gastroenterologists, the American College of Gastroenterology. And I am so incredibly pleased to be here tonight. When Ruth invited me, she told me, astronauts and Jamaican bobsledders have been on the show. And I said, oh, I really wish I could have been on the night that the Jamaican bobsledder was on. And she said, we're going to have him again. And here I am.
Well, I've always wanted to be the gastroenterologist. So here we are.
There you go. There you go.
Talk, Devon, okay?
And two fun facts about Dave. So first of all, someone who I love very, very, very much, Dave was his mentor. And that guy who I love very much has advocated for Dave for months. Get Dave on the show, get Dave on the show, invite Dave. And when I called him and I told him about the bobsledder, and he said, that he really wanted to be on it, we said, we can make that happen around here. So here we are. And hopefully we will get to this, because I said, Dave, let's try to save some lives tonight. And as president of the American College of Gastroenterology, he has some very powerful messages that he can share about something that scares all of us. Because if we are going to achieve success, we need to be in our best state of health to do it, which means doing a lot of preventative stuff as well and really thinking forward. So he will talk to us about that a little bit as well. So I really appreciate you taking the time to come on, Dave. I have personally seen firsthand the mentorship that you provide, and you've mentored hundreds of doctors. I mean, have you ever counted how many?
No. But the man who Ruth is talking about is her husband. So I was fortunate to be the training director in the program where he trained. He's an absolutely wonderful gastroenterologist also, and just a lovely person.
And how great is it that this is decades later and they're still in touch. So that tells you what a great mentoring relationship and teaching relationship and advising relationship that was. So thank you. Susie Katz.
Hi, how are you?
Great.
So I'm Susie Katz. I've been a photographer since I was little. I think people asked me when I started, and I think as soon as I could see, I could put something into a frame. And I've spent many decades as a professional photographer. And about 10, 15 years ago, I morphed that into my nonprofit Photo Wings, which we utilize the knowledge in around photography to help people learn how to think. So I've been spending a lot of time mentoring other people and talking with the best photographers in the world, learning how their process and how they've succeeded.
And Susie's not just a photographer. I mean, some of us just run around with our phone and, our iPhone has all these settings and we think we're hot stuff. Susie is the ultimate photographer. And I think if you would ever go check out her website and see, there are colors there I never knew existed. It is mesmerizing, some of these pictures. So I highly recommend that you check that out. Thanks, Susie.
Thank you.
Janice Lintz.
Hi, and thank you again for having me. So I work in hearing accessibility and help make the world accessible for people with hearing loss. And I'm also traveling to every country in the world pre-pandemic.
So when high achievers, I always say that they're the most humble people around. I've had to interview some of them, and I say, I'm reaching out to you because you are an extreme high achiever. And they say, no, I'm really not. And I said, but you won a Nobel. I think you are. And this happens over and over and over again. And, Janice is just another one of the examples, like everyone here. She doesn't just advocate for hearing loss. The reason that there is hearing accessibility in every baseball stadium and New York City subways and the national parks and museums and Broadway theaters is because Janice is like a dog with a bone. She is relentless, and she has contacted everyone, including the Queen of England, to get access. She has testified and served on congressional committees. I mean, she works hard, really hard, to make sure everyone gets the access that they are legally supposed to be getting. These are people, all of these people, Allison, Devon, Bruce, Dave, Susie, Janice, these are people, they started at the same starting line and they got ahead. They really forged their path ahead. So what's their secret sauce? What do you think got you guys to where you are today as a full professor and senior contributor and an amazing photographer and president of the American College of Gastroenterology and Olympic bobsledder and all of these things? How did you get there? You didn't just wake up one morning and say, I'm going to do this. What do you think it was? What do you think your secret sauce was? Who has an idea?
I think it's part of it is having an insatiable curiosity. And I think all of us are people that like to give back. So as we think outside the box and look around us and look down the road into the future, we try to morph into that person and grow as there's changes in the world.
Absolutely.
I love that, Susie, because that was exactly what was going through my head after Ruth asked the question. As I was reflecting on this conversation tonight, I told Ruth it kind of filled me with immediate anxiety, right? Talking about getting ahead, because I don't like, highly competitive. Well, I like competition. I don't like competition in professional life. I think that can get really ugly, right? I did like it when I was a fencer at Princeton, but that's different. Weapons, it's fun. Nothing like a little sword play. But what I was thinking about was sales, okay? Because if you're in sales, and I didn't do it for very long, but I did have some experience with it, you can be like sleazy. You can try to get people, and people think of salespeople as just trying to get you to buy something. But good ones figure out what your need is and then meet your need. And I keep thinking that each place where I felt like I hit a ceiling and then past the ceiling, it was because I got really interested in a problem. I wouldn't give up until I found a satisfactory option to solve it. And then I started offering that solution, and people are like, oh, hold on, that's useful. Come on in. Let's talk about that.
It's a lot of it is empathy also. It's really understanding what people need. And there's a difference between want and need, and really trying to help them and get after that. I'm curious what some of the others of you have really done in order to get ahead and move forward.
Well, empathy is really important. Let me say the value of empathy is critical. I mean, but I think one of the most important things is being your authentic self. It's not trying to be somebody who you're not, but if you naturally want to connect with people, if you want to help people, then that comes out as long as you're real. And I think a lot of the success that people have is by using their strengths, whatever those strengths are, and then really projecting them, on others.
Love it.
I think there are two great points here. I really love the curiosity piece. And curiosity, not just from the standpoint of being inquisitive to find out, to get information, but a curiosity about the limits of your own potential. If you look around the world and look at around your world and the people who have excelled, you'll find that they rose above their particular circumstances. And so I'm always curious about, well, if he can do that or if she can do that, well, what can I possibly do? And so I'm always curious about what the next level is for me. And I speak about keep on pushing, and it's because I'm curious about what it is I could possibly accomplish if I just try. And I think if we approach life with that sense of curiosity about what our potential is, we will, as you say, Ruth, get ahead. And as David, spoke about this, I think the empathy piece is really important as well, because one of the things that I find that distinguishes really successful people from those who aren't is that really successful people don't take themselves too seriously. They work hard and they are proud of their accomplishments, but they also believe that there's somebody else who could be just as good, if not better. And when there's an opportunity to extend a hand, my friend says, when you succeed, you send a lift back down for someone else. That is part and parcel of the empathy.
I think
the key is a really good green screen.
Yeah. We'll talk afterwards.
I'm sorry, I can't go on with these people. They're so funny. I think we all love what we do. So we each found, like, whatever it is we're doing, I think it's really hard to do something well and not like it. So when I practiced law, I really hated it, really hated it. And it would be impossible for me to succeed as a lawyer because I just hated it. And so I always used to tell my kids, whatever career you pick, you have to love, because you have to, to succeed, you have to be able to go above and beyond everyone else. And so the way to decide if you like your career is you have to be able to read the trade journal of whatever your field is. And the last thing I wanted to read was the New York Law Journal. I just couldn't stand it. I realized I was really in the wrong career. So I had to leave. But I love what I do. And so for me, when I'm reading whatever documents or even legal things about what I do, I love it. It's not work. And I think each of us don't find out, we work hard, but it's not the same type of drudgery work. You're not going against the grain, you're growing with the grain.
So, Janice, it's so interesting you say that, because there's a study out of the Mayo Clinic that says you only need to spend 20% of your time doing what it is that you love doing. And then the rest of the time won't deplete you so much. So, for example, you were trained as a lawyer. You were never trained in hearing access advocacy, but you use a lot of your law training. Even though you said you hated being a lawyer, you're using a lot of that training to get your advocacy work done. And I've seen you, and I've seen how passionate and fired up you get when you're doing that. And when you do that, the law doesn't consume you so much. You actually use that to build your case.
Because the difference is, when I'm practicing that way, I feel like I'm using my law degree the way it should be used to succeed, right? For good reasons. I'm not just fighting for the sake of fighting, which is when you practice law, a lot of what you do. I couldn't stand just fighting for the sake of fighting, and winning at all costs, no matter what the consequences are. I would have, if I knew my client was wrong, I'd wanted the other side to win. But that doesn't make a very good lawyer, right? That makes a really crappy lawyer, but it makes a great advocate. So I had to, I could not practice law.
So, what's interesting is that with all of the high achievers who I've researched, and it's probably with everyone here who's on this panel, all of who are high achievers themselves, they take advantage of opportunities, and they're not afraid to. They're not afraid to jump and take advantage of those opportunities when they present themselves, because those opportunities may never come again. And Devon, I mean, you're a bobsledder from Jamaica. So, right?
I was bored. No,
you were actually in the military when you tried out. So I don't think you were too bored.
So as I was listening to Janice, though, what came to my mind was the fact that we all have to learn how to take our existing skill set and experience and knowledge, because we live in a very dynamic environment. So how do we take that, all of that skill and knowledge and experience, and apply to the new dynamic environment in which we live to either create or take advantage of new opportunities? And so if you start out with being curious about what it is that you could possibly accomplish. So like, I'm a 21-year-old young Army officer, and I'm trying to figure out what the hell am I going to do with the rest of my life? I just achieved my big dream of becoming an Army officer. I'm like, is this it? I'm like, oh yeah, the Olympics. And so I start to think about competing not in the Winter Olympics, because at the time that did not exist, but the Summer Olympics
for Jamaicans. For Jamaicans,
yeah.
The rest of the world,
it was not on my radar. I mean, I actually didn't know about that there was such a travesty as the Winter Olympics that existed, but I never saw myself competing in any rubbish like that. So I started training, pushing myself, hoping to qualify for the Seoul Olympic Games as a middle distance runner. So because I'm Jamaican, you probably think I'm a sprinter. Well, maybe I am a sprinter, but in Jamaican terms, I'm not a very fast sprinter. So I ran middle distances. And so around about that same time, 2 Americans came up with the idea to start a bobsled team. And I just ran this cross-country race in the Army, and they're going, oh my God, he's fit. And so my colonel told me to go to the team trials. And obviously I could have gone because it told me to go and then just kind of make up the numbers. But I'm just not wired that way. Once I'm going to the team trials, the focus now becomes, how am I going to make that team? I saw myself I described myself back then as Army fit. I could walk 100 miles, 50 pounds on my back, a rifle in my hand. I didn't feel like I was sports fit. But man, I just did everything. And most of it was mental, because wasn't that much time to get yourself to what I would consider peak physical condition. So it was mostly a mental exercise for me. And I went to the team trials, tried my darnest, and here we are.
And tell everyone, where did you meet your future teammates for the first time?
Oh, so we all actually were at the team trials. We didn't know each other. So we went through this 2 days of really rigorous exercising. And then 2 weeks later, I'm at the airport, and I was given an airline ticket. I turned up at the airport and I see 3 other guys who I recognized from the team trials. And so we became a team.
At the airport.
At the airport.
And as we're talking about, and Dave, I'm coming to you next, as we're talking about taking advantage of opportunities and not being afraid to take that risk, when was the first time you saw a bobsled?
Oh yeah. October 1987 was the first time I saw a bobsled, which obviously is months before the February 1988 Olympic Games.
Yeah.
When we met, this was September. I'm lying. It's September 1987. We go up to Lake Placid, New York, met our coach, and he had a 2-man bobsled in his driveway. So we saw, and it was like, it's really tight and it's not very comfortable. It's not golf. And then we saw a bobsled track for the first time. And I remember just looking at, where the corners meet the straightaways and how narrow it was, and wondering, how the hell are we ever going to get through that? But again, I thought to myself, other people have done it, so I guess we're going to have to figure it out. So it was a jarring experience.
And there's
just so cool, though. It's like you see an opportunity in front of you and you just grab it because you can do it, or you think you can do it and you want to do it. And then I'm going to use one of your quotes here. You keep on pushing. You said it in the outset, and it's actually his Twitter handle. Keep on pushing. But you keep on. You prepare. You do what you can, but you're ready to take that opportunity when it presents itself. Ruth, you said it perfectly. You don't know when that opportunity is going to come up, but you're so well prepared with the things that you've set in motion that when the opportunity presents itself, you're willing to take that risk. And it's not really a risk, because as long as you work hard, you can do it. And to me, that's the key to the whole thing.
Yeah, the other day I saw avocado toast and I said, go for it.
Who was it said that they don't work? Is it Janice who said, yeah, it doesn't work, but there's a tremendous amount of effort. And I remember that very weekend going on an ice rink to push a sled with the Americans. First time we're doing anything like that. First time we're seeing more ice than you can fit in a tall glass of lemonade. And, we're having a hard time walking on the ice. We spent more time on our butts. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, this bobsled thing is harder than I thought. I mean, if we can't walk on ice, how are we going to ever run on ice? So there's never any guarantee that that success is yours, and it requires a significant effort every step of the way. But if you hang in there, yeah, exactly, if you keep on pushing, and just really believe in yourself. I remember years ago someone asked, at what point did we believe in 1988 that we would not make it? We never thought that. Mm-hmm. We always just kind of move forward with an expectation that, yeah, it's kind of difficult. I am scared of speed and height, but I'm going to go down this bobsled run anyway. And if I die, I die. Talk about risk.
Well, it's interesting because, and I just want to highlight it and summarize it this way. You met your teammates at the airport 5 months before the Olympics, which is when you met your coach for the first time, which is when you saw a bobsled at the same time, and you started training. But I don't know how many of you picked up on this, that it was a 2-man bobsled, but the Olympics, they competed in the 4-man bobsled. So they had literally no time to train together in the 4-man bobsled, but they took the risk and they did it. And they knew that they would put in whatever effort and whatever time that they had to do the best that they could, but they tried. And this is the key thing, is that high achievers fear not trying more than they fear failing. Okay. Failing is part of the process, but not trying is not an option.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. And I'm sure that all of you have similar stories as well. The thing I know is that success principles are universal. So we, it was a little bit crazy. I agree. Never raced a 4-man bobsled before in our lives. And we are at the Olympic Games. I mean, the pinnacle of global competition. And we go, yeah, let's do the 4-man. So in 3 days,
rented 4-man.
A rented 4-man sled, 3 days of training, one guy. So if you think seeing a bobsled for the first time in September of '87 is bad, imagine Christos coming to the Olympic Games and seeing a bobsled for the first time that week. And at the end of the week, he's in an Olympic race after 3 days of training. But so I know if that was in the movie, people go, come on, that doesn't make a drop of sense. But that's exactly what happened.
I mean, you also have to be open to opportunities. There's a saying that luck is when preparation and opportunity meet. Yeah. And you can absolutely have a wonderful opportunity, but you're so focused and so siloed that you don't see it. Or some people are so interested in talking about themselves and they don't realize that there may be somebody that could change their life if they just listened. And just we're open to that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Agreed.
Allison, you were going to jump in and say something?
I've got to give a shout out to all the people out there who are not as self-confident, right? Because I keep hearing believe in yourself. You've got to keep pushing. You've got to reach for those things. I really don't think I have had a lot of self-confidence really until very recently, within the last few years, and this is discussed among women physicians all the time, that we are rife with imposter syndrome. But what Ruth pointed out is the difference. I am terrified of not trying. And I was just curious, though, Dr. Greenwald, I think I might have a GI problem because I have a fire in my belly. And like, this is what comes up, right? Like right now I'm pivoting onto what is likely going to be the hardest project of my career because I'm taking on the prevailing medical paradigm in mental health. And it kind of came together where I've been thinking about it for years. And then with trembling, I published an article in Forbes about some biological anthropologists who were calling this into question, and it had 1 million reads, which I know is not a lot for Bruce, but and then but then you get opportunity, right? Then and you meet a need, right? So the editors at Psychology Today were like, well, we want to talk about this more, but we don't have anyone writing about it. Will you write about it for us? And I'm like, yes. And so now that's growing into this project where it's very clear that people are really looking for this information. And I should probably tell you what it is, that a lot of the things we consider mental illness, like depression, anxiety, or post-traumatic stress, are probably not illness so much as they are important adaptive responses that our body makes to stress and adversity. And when people start to hear that, they start to think about themselves very differently. And it's all the science is out there. But anyway, so where was I going? That fire in my belly.
Your whole face lit up, Allison, when you were talking about that.
Yeah, so fire in my belly, because I refuse every time I feel overwhelmed by this and I feel like I'm not the person to do this. I think about all my patients who are walking around with labels that are keeping them stuck. I think about my kids and how I don't want them to grow up, to be told you're limited now because you've had a depression, and not understand that there's a totally new science of looking at this that can be very freeing. So anyway, my bottom line there is sometimes I think that people who accomplish things just don't have a choice. Like, it's not that you're going for it. It's that you have no other option. I can't turn away from this if I wanted to.
I agree with that.
Yeah. Can I ask a question? Where do you think the dissonance is between confidence or the lack thereof and the imposter syndrome?
Oh, that's a long story. I actually got to interview, it was so fun. I got to interview the woman who discovered imposter syndrome.
Really?
Yeah, it's Psychology Today. The article title is How to Prevent Imposter Syndrome in Your Children. That woman, she is the most giving woman. Pauline Rose Clance, I believe she's 81 now. When I interviewed her, she spent half the interview just mentoring me and building me up.
Wow.
But I don't know. I have to double check to get the whole thing right. Imposter syndrome is pretty common in high achievers. Ruth can tell you that. And it basically comes from the idea that every success you have is proof that you're not actually successful and you're going to be found out as a fraud.
So it becomes so overwhelming, and you are afraid that it was a mistake, and people are going to think it was a mistake. And imposter syndrome, we had a separate episode about this, actually impacts 70% of people. And so that really means that most people actually have it to some degree. And I'm not convinced that the other 30% don't. I think they're either narcissists or they won't admit that they actually
have it. Is that 70% of people or 70% of high achievers? Because
people.
Oh, because the statistic Dr. Clance uses is 30%. So I was wondering about that.
No, it's now 70%. Most people have it. I'm surprised that she said that because it was her research that said 70%.
Yeah, I don't know.
Those two people are imposters.
We're all walking around with masks on, but the idea with the imposter, I remembered it now, is that you attribute everything that's happened to something that's not you. It wasn't your hard work. It was luck, or it was, someone who helped you or whatever. And Dr. Clance pointed out, if you've been helped along by your network, maybe it's because you're intelligent enough to form a network.
That's right. Dave.
Yep.
When we met, you were a fellowship director.
Correct.
And that was a role that you held for a very long time. And that basically means that you were in charge of training the next generation of gastroenterologists at the hospital where you worked at Montefiore. Getting from that to being president of the American College of Gastroenterology, which is the big association, that does not happen overnight. How did you take that leap?
Oh, well, first of all, before I get into that, Allison, you said you had this fire in your belly, and I usually try to fix the fires in people's bellies, but in your case, I'm not trying to fix it at all. One of the greatest things I've done in my life was to be fellowship director at Montefiore for over 20 years, actually. And it largely was so rewarding because, I was able to touch so many people's lives in a meaningful way over the course of those 20 years. And just like Amnon, Ruth's husband, I've remained in touch with a good number of those folks. And it's really gratifying to be able to have an influence on all of those people in whatever way. It can be very small. It doesn't have to be, massive. But you have a moment, more than a moment, a whole year, 3 years, to really sort of help people along, to meet whatever goals they want to meet, which was really terrific. To get to be president of the American College of Gastroenterology, I mean, that's just an honor and a privilege, and I consider myself really lucky. And that, I think, in many ways just had to do with hard work and taking the opportunities that came along to lead things and to provide, I think, good leadership. And I was mentored along the way by a whole number of people who showed me what I needed to do to be a good leader. And ultimately, I'm lucky enough now to be leading this national organization, which I'm incredibly proud of. And I'm proud of the members, and I'm proud of all the things that the organization does.
Now, Dave, can you tell us a little bit about, you said that you were doing some smaller leadership roles along the way. What did those look like? Did people come to you? Did you seek them out? Did you create those opportunities?
Yeah, great question. A little bit of all of those things. So, for example, I consider myself somewhat of an educator in the gastroenterology world. And so I was offered an opportunity when someone no longer wanted to run the second year teaching course at Albert Einstein. They said, would you be interested in doing that? And I was like, yes, absolutely. A great opportunity to jump on that. In the American College of Gastroenterology, there was a group called the Governors, and someone asked, could you be the leader of a set of the governors? And I was like, sure, that would be fun. I had no idea what it was going to involve, but I was like, yeah, I'm ready to do it. And then we went into high schools in the cities where the meetings were being held. This was my idea, and went into high schools and told them, the students, what a gastroenterologist did. And we brought show and tells, we brought endoscopes and all sorts of toys. And it was fun, but it was a way of impacting often inner city folks who had limited access to what a gastroenterologist or what a physician might be like, and really, brought it to those communities. So, again, making these opportunities, and all of those things were impactful, and people recognized that they were impactful. And I think that's what's really important about rising in some of these organizations. I don't know what the others of you think.
I love it. And, I'm going to make my own opportunity here. And the fact that we have you here and we have Bruce here as our COVID expert. I mean, he is the most COVID expert outside of Dr. Fauci. And we have some, these other great people. Let's save some lives here today. Dave, at what age should we get colonoscopies? First of all, why are they important, and at what age should we get them?
So what Ruth is talking about is colorectal cancer screening, and colorectal cancer screening is now recommended at age 50 for average risk folks up to the age of 75. A number of new guidelines have now lowered that age to 45. So for my money, 45 is the right age to start. And the reason why this is so important is because most colorectal cancer is completely preventable. It starts from little growths called polyps. Very simply put, little polyps grow into big polyps grow into cancer. And if we can identify those polyps and remove them before they turn into cancer, we can save lives. And we've actually been doing that for decades now. And we've proven that we can save lives, and we do save lives. People are really scared of colorectal cancer screening, and particularly colonoscopy. They think it's going to hurt. They're embarrassed. They're fearful. They're afraid of what the doctor's going to find. The truth is that the preparation, which is often thought to be the worst part, is really not that bad. We've made it much easier over the years. Happy to talk about anybody about that offline. The procedure itself, we give you sedation. You don't feel anything. It takes about 20 to 30 minutes. You wake up about 5 minutes later. You go home, and we find polyps, like I was just speaking about, in between 20 and 30% of people, and we save lots of lives.
Wow. All right. So from age 45, and people who don't have a gastroenterologist, how can they find one?
Well, they can go to their regular healthcare provider and ask for one. The American College of Gastroenterology, for example, has a find a physician function on the website. You just go in there, pop in your zip code, and you'll get a list of everybody in your area. Or you can just call me, and I'll recommend somebody to you.
Anywhere in the world?
Anywhere in the world.
Wow. Wow. We feel like royalty. I just got a tiara today.
You are royalty.
Well, I am hoping that by doing that, you have really encouraged some people to get their colonoscopies. Maybe we will save some lives today. Now, Bruce, I have you here. What are 3 things we can do in the midst of this pandemic to save our lives and other people's lives? Well,
one thing I was encouraged by this conversation, hearing Devon, that I'm still on the timeline to make the Olympics, because there's still a few months left. But the problem with me is lack of talent and ability. So, but besides that, I'm on the timeline. I'm sorry, you said 3 things to do?
3 things we can do to save ourselves from getting or spreading COVID.
So one is what hopefully everyone's been doing up till now, which is social distancing, physical distancing, maintaining enough distance between people. You know, they always talk about the 6 feet apart. And I like to say that that's the equivalent to the height of Denzel Washington, or the height of Ryan Gosling. So if you're in Canada, it's a Gosling, and if you're in the United States, it's a Denzel. So you want to try to maintain that, disinfect things, wash your hands. So that's basically 1, keeping all that stuff. 2 is face masks help, because it basically it helps all that stuff that comes out of your mouth when you talk and sing and chant, or all those different types of things. So you're really protecting each other by wearing face masks. It may protect you as well, but you used to see those films where people are singing songs. Like once you've seen one of those films where like all the spit goes flying, that kind of makes you social distance as well. So that's the second thing. The third thing is we've got a new weapon against the COVID-19 coronavirus, and that's the vaccine. So lots of people are getting the vaccine now, and vaccines historically have been one of the greatest public health interventions that we know, because it's led to the eradication of smallpox. It really prevented a lot of childhood illnesses. Many of us would not be able to do what we do today, whether it's participate in the Olympics, or write great articles, or do great photography, or all these things like that, or take selfies with llamas, what have you. We wouldn't be able to do these things if we didn't have vaccines, because we wouldn't have the same life expectancy as we would right now. Because before, many people had measles and mumps, rubella, hepatitis. All these diseases were big problems, and are still big problems in many parts of the country. So the COVID-19 vaccine is out there, and a lot of people are getting that. So there are different things that we can do, and it all depends on layering. So it's like Swiss cheese. You don't just eat one slice, you layer it on. Or at least I like to layer 10 slices on top of each other. But basically, they all cover the holes. Of each layer has a hole, but when you cover the layers and keep on doing that, you'll protect yourself and other people.
So I got my vaccine because I care for patients, and it was better than avocado toast. The sense of happiness and peace that me and all the nurses and everyone I know who's gotten it feels. So get it when it's your turn, for sure.
Yeah, there's no question about that. Please do that. If you get the opportunity, please do it. We won't get rid of the pandemic until we get 70, 80, 90% of the population that either has COVID or gets vaccinated, and we really need to take our shot when we can, as they say.
Allison and Dave, I know you're actively seeing patients. Tell us, Allison and Dave, you're doing procedures. You're doing those colonoscopies you spoke of. What is some of the safety gear that you need to wear just to protect yourself and your patients? Because you have to do more than just the mask that Bruce was talking about, and you can't be 6 feet away from your patient. So what are you doing? What does that safety gear, that PPE, look like for you?
I think David should field this one because he's going to have the full gear on.
Happy to do that. You know, the safety gear is really important, and what Bruce said is so important. The mask turns out to be probably the most important piece of this entire armamentarium, because they really do protect us from the stuff that's coming out of somebody who might be carrying COVID-19. The masks are critical. To do our procedures, we're wearing a gown, we're wearing gloves, we're wearing a face mask with a shield, and we are wearing little surgical hats now and booties. So it's quite a lot. You know, actually, it protects us. It's been really reassuring. We had some early studies that showed us that doing personal protective gear like this actually helped us. So yeah, the early days of the COVID surge in New York City were really frightening. Obviously frightening for patients, obviously frightening for their families, but also for healthcare workers and of all types, because we weren't quite sure what was going to happen to us. And it was very reassuring to know early on some data that showed that the personal protective equipment actually did work. And there is lots of evidence now that shows that it does do that. It's very frightening though. And one other thing that I think is really important that I want to bring up, all of that gear isolates me from my patients now. And that's been another one of these horrible sort of offshoots of the pandemic. You know, I used to touch people, and now I'm separated by a lot of gear and a mask, and they can't see my facial expressions so well. It's really been a difficult time, and I'm hoping that we get to a day with vaccines that we can get past that.
I can speak to that. There's neuroscience that you can use here. Voice in a really calm and prosodic musical way can give people almost the same feeling of connection. So you can very deliberately use your voice to try to reach past that. I bet you already are. Bruce, can you speak to the recent recommendation? In Europe, they're now calling for public use of N95 masks, and I know some top experts in the US have asked for everyone to start using them.
Yeah, there's a difference in face coverings, obviously. So, you know, you can the thinnest face coverings are the scarves or the those stuffs that people put on, and you know, it'll block something, but like those things have a lot of hole in them. And then you can get thicker and you can get surgical masks that are the N95 mask. Is really a designation. Basically, it means that it's been tested, and at worst, it filters at least 95% of all particles that might go through the mask. So it's really a certain standard or certain level. And those types of masks are better at filtering small things like viruses, as opposed to, you know, a bandana or what have you. So the thought is that if we can get enough of those N95 masks, they actually would be better than regular face masks, because they would not only block things coming out of your mouth, but they also will protect you better as well, because it gives that filtering action. So there is a movement in Europe to actually require N95 masks, and there's some push to do it here as well. The big challenge is the actual supply, the actual number that are available, because as you remember, near the beginning of the pandemic, you know, there were shortages of everything, ranging from toilet paper to to masks, to toilet paper as well. Exactly. But if we can get that supply up, it's actually probably more better or more optimal for us to actually wear N95 masks, because it can really protect everyone.
And can people use the KN95s, which are more readily available, or the N94 Hanji masks from Korea?
Yeah, so there's these different designations. The KN95 is actually a designation in China. So they have a standard. And then there's also the FFP designation in Europe. So you want to look at these designations. So it's a little different because the testing is done a little differently. So KN95 may not be equivalent to N95, but it's not bad. Similar, like an FFP3 designation is actually more stringent than a N95 designation. So you want to look at these governing bodies and then regulatory bodies and see what their designation are. But certainly a KN95 is better than something that isn't. It's probably better to get something with a designation that's an N95 than a KN95 though, because we're not really sure completely of all the regulatory requirements in other countries like China.
So to be clear, I don't think the N95s are going to be readily available, but people can definitely get the KN95s or the Hanji masks on Amazon still.
Mm-hmm.
But wearing something is better than wearing nothing is the most important point.
Absolutely.
Yes, that's a general rule with every situation.
Whole life.
And when I hear what Dave has to wear just to do his job, I don't think there's any reason why people can't wear a mask. Certainly why they can't wear the mask over their nose and mouth if someone like Dave has to really suit up with all of this stuff just to do his job. So we had a lot of public service announcements, and I hope we saved some lives today with those public service announcements. We need to have everyone back again. But if people have follow-up questions, I want to know where they can get in touch with you guys. And I want to remind everyone that we are always streaming live these shows on all the social media channels, and it's later you can watch it on YouTube. And the audio is heard on the Mentor Project podcast. So if you hadn't yet had a chance, go check out the Mentor Project podcast. Subscribe to it. Please leave us a rating and review, because all of these people who are involved are all volunteering their time to come and talk to us and really share their expertise. So show them some love, give them a rating and review so other people can find them and we can have more great topics. And I hope all of you will come back again. But in the interim, where can people learn more about you? Dr. Allison Escalante.
Well, you can find me at AllisonEscalante.com if you spell it correctly. That's Allison with one L. Or you can find me at ShouldStorm.com. And that links to all my social media and all my articles.
Wonderful. Thank you. Our favorite Jamaican bobsledder, Devon Harris.
So happens that I'm my favorite Jamaican bobsledder as well. And you can find me at devonharris.com, or as David mentioned earlier, my Twitter and IG handle are at KeepOnPushing88. Feel free to stop by my podcast as well, the youtube.com/keeponpushing.always. See you then.
Thank you. Dr. Bruce Y. Lee.
Yeah, so you can Google Bruce Y. Lee. Make sure you include the Y, because you'll get something very different if it's just Bruce Lee. And also at bruceylee.com. Also, my social media handles like Twitter are at Bruce_Y_Lee. I also wanted to say, love these shows, Ruth, and I always learn so much from everyone else and from Dr. Ruth herself. She has so much knowledge and so much information and great articles. So I just wanted to give a plug for you as well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Dr. Dave Greenwald.
Well, I will second the wonderful pearls that I've learned on this show, and all of the wise stuff that, Ruth, you have to offer as well. I really appreciate being in the company of such wonderful people. Anybody who wants to find me, I'm happy to talk to you anytime. David.Greenwald at Mount Sinai, all spelled out, .org. If you just Google it, you'll find it. And I have a Twitter handle at DA Greenwald, and happy to talk to anyone anytime.
Great. And thanks for those public service announcements and really talking us through colonoscopies today. I know that the idea scares a lot of people, but hopefully not after today.
You think my gear's tough to wear, but look at what Devon had to wear in the Olympics there. I mean,
Yeah.
You had to wear a wetsuit.
Freezing my royal
thing you can do is-
mayonnaise off.
The great thing is you can always say the word, I'm going to shake my booties.
yeah.
Well, not when it's that frozen, man.
Susie Katz.
So you can find me where I spend most of my time these days at my nonprofit Photo Wings, PHOTOWINGS.org. You can find me as 1 hour with a mentor on the Mentor Project, where I talk about photo wings and I have a lot of my photos. And my personal photography website is SusanKatzPhotography.com.
And I highly, highly recommend you go check out her pictures. One day she'll teach me how to take even a fraction of the way she takes pictures. One day, I hope I get that magic glimpse.
And I'm adding my kudos to you
Thank
and
you.
everybody else. I learn a lot each week.
I do too. Janice Lintz.
So you can find me, and I also share in the kudos to you because I love these Monday nights. They're just so much fun, and I laugh so hard. It's great, and besides learning so much, I can be found at hearingaccess.com and also at janicelintz.com.
Thank you. And everyone, I am Ruth Gautian. I can be found at ruthgautian.com. Also, you can see my articles in Forbes. Just look at my name, Ruth Gautian. Tomorrow's article is on how to find the perfect mentor. That's really interesting. So check it out and join us every Monday night. You have seen many of these familiar faces as they join our family and become part of our family. Devon and Dave, I hope you will join us again. We loved having you and we laugh with you, and there's more to learn from you and more lives to save. So I hope you'll all join us again. Again, find us on the podcast, subscribe, and leave us a rating and review. Thank you very much, guys. See you next week. Bye.
Thank you.